Greetings, my customers. We're going to make some cookies or biscuits. We're going to make some spiced rye ginger cookies. Okay, so the flour we're going to use is rye flour, and it's going to be spiced up, not just with ginger. There's quite a lot of ginger going in this, but it's going to have ground cardamom, ground cinnamon, ground black pepper. Yeah, that's the salt, the spices. Got molasses in it, got vegetable oil and eggs. Now, I doubled up the recipe because I want to make a lot. It's being generous, I want to give some away. And so this should make about 44. So obviously if you don't want 44 cookies, halve everything. So, spiced rye ginger cookies. Now I've got some baking trays prepared. I've put some silicone mats on there. You can use parchment paper or baking paper, it's up to you. Okay, I've got my oven on, heating up to about 155, 160ish fan. Okay, so let's start preparing the cookies. So in here I've got 425 grams of flour, and I'm going to add to that, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, a teaspoon of salt, 4 teaspoons of ground ginger. As I said, a lot of ginger in it. 1.5 teaspoons of freshly ground black pepper. Actually, I'm using long pepper, so we'll see. I don't know if you really make a difference whether you'd notice difference. Then I've got a teaspoon of ground cinnamon and a teaspoon of ground cardamom. And that's all the spices in there, and all we're just going to do is just sort of whisk that through just to get them all mixed well together, and in a way get a bit of air into it. We'll be probably knocking that out later anyway. So that's our dry ingredients all done. Now you might have noticed I've got some pearl sugar crumbs in the back there. That's when we finished making the cookies before we bake them. Okay, you can use sort of coarse granulated sugar, but we'll come to that anyway. So in my bigger bowl, which is going to be my final mixing bowl, I've got some vegetable oil, 198 grams of that, and then I've got here some caster sugar, or you can use granulated, doesn't matter, 298 grams of that. And what we're going to do is now just whisk this all together to get that sugar sort of dissolved, if you like, in that oil. Now, the only other 2 ingredients you're going to add are 2 large eggs, which we will add in a minute, and then some molasses. I've got 170 grams of that weighed out there. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a little bit more noise. Now, I'm using a hand whisk. You can use an electric whisk. You can use a stand mixer if you want. Anyway, we're now just going to add to that. The last of these eggs I had, local supplier. The shells were quite thin, but these seem a bit thicker this time. Just a bit white in there. So now I'm just going to whisk those eggs into that mixture. Now that's nicely mixed together, nice and smooth. We're just going to add in our molasses, and again we're just going to whisk this through until that's all nicely combined together. So that's the molasses all mixed in, and so now we're going to add in our dry ingredients. Now I'll probably have to switch to a spoon, I think, at some point, because I think it's going to get a bit too thick and stodgy. I'm just now making sure all those dry ingredients are thoroughly mixed in, that we've got no little pockets flour, and then you're going to want something about the size of a tablespoon. I mean, the recipe, I got this from the King Arthur Bakery site, popped up in my YouTube suggestions, and they talk about using a tablespoon sized cookie scoop. Never heard of one of them, but anyway, so we're going to roughly measure out sort of a tablespoonful. He's suggesting you want about 1 1/4 inch sort of ball, if you like. And then when we place it onto the mat, we are going to be, before we place them on the mat, we're going to be rolling them in some of this sugar, so that they get this sort of semi sort of crunchy sugary coating. Although I am tempted to leave some without the sugar because I like chocolate coating, because I'm making so many. But when we put them on there, they're going to flatten out and spread, and so you need to make sure you've got a good 2-inch clearance around each one. So this is going to take a lot of trays. So I'm scooping up like a heaped teaspoon, which of course then doesn't want to come out. Don't go any coffee. Like I say, we're just going to roll that into a ball, and then toss it in that sugar and place it onto the mat. Like I say, give it plenty of room to spread. Now, we're going to bake these, like I say, at about 160-ish. Okay, 180 if you're conventional oven. But it's going to be about 12 to 15 minutes. And I think for this very first tray, well, I think I'm going to leave that one a bit bigger. I'm going to make sure I don't put too many on there, and I'll see how much they spread. Because what I don't want to happen is them all merging. Now these want to be slightly sort of soft on the inside, if you're with me. So they're not a dry cookie. Get that all messy about that. They're not a dry cookie. They are a bit chewy in the middle, if you like. So we're waiting to sort of like the outsides, if you like, have set a bit. Right, so I'm just going to do my other tray, and then we'll put those two in and we'll see what they look like. Right, that's all the baking done. So I did a mixture of the sugar coated ones. Okay, we'll taste that one in a minute. That one's got a bottom patch on it where there's no sugar, so that'll be a reject when I have to eat it. And then we did some plain ones. And then I've got some plain ones here that just finished cooling off, and I've just melted down some chocolate, and I'm just going to give them a chocolate coating. Did find the first batch trays I did, I made the balls too big and they spread too much, and so some did end up sort of merging. So there's a couple of deformed ones. Other than that, they're all right size-wise, shape-wise, they're just giant. So I've made some smaller ones after that. So I'm just going to get coating these with chocolate. We'll let them set, and then we better have a big tasting session. So while my chocolate's setting, let's try one of just the plain ones. This one was slightly overbaked as well, so got a nice punch to it. It's not sort of soft in the middle. Much more like a, well, what I would call a traditional ginger biscuit, which I love. very gingery. You think you definitely get that pepper through, but very nice spiced ginger biscuit. Ooh. Now I suppose we'll have to try one of these, don't I? I said I'd do this reject one. So it's exactly the same. The only difference is that this was rolled in those sugar bits. And it just means it's got that sweeter edge to it. Other than that, obviously, there's no difference. So, can't really try them yet, they're still setting. I might put them somewhere just to chill them a bit to help set them quicker. But there you go, there's your spiced rye. And the rye flour, by the way, I don't know if it really, you can tell it, because it obviously overpoweringly it's a ginger biscuit. But there you go, your spiced rye ginger biscuit.